Welcome back to the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast. I'm your host, Max Renk, and today we're looking at two perspectives of what makes Renk Seed different. First, I'm joined by familiar guests Karl Bobholz, our corn product manager, and Alex Renk, who leads our soybean and alfalfa selection here at Renk Seed. Together, we're diving into the genetics, traits, and product selection process that help us match the right seed to your acres. We talk about the breadth of germplasm and trait options we have access to, and how that gives us the flexibility to bring the best products to our growers, from Wisconsin to Nebraska, or anywhere in between. We break down how corn and soybeans are selected, how we use in-house and third-party research to make data-driven decisions, and why our approach to testing and placement helps deliver better results across the Midwest. And while Karl and Alex live this process every day, it's our dealers who take that seed, those traits, and that research out to the farm gate. Later on in the episode, I share some insight from our recent in-person sales kickoff, where I caught up with several of our dealers to hear about what makes Renk Seed unique and how they share that with growers in their communities. Let's jump in. Welcome back to another episode of the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast. I'm your host, Max Renk, and once again, we are joined by Karl Bobholz and Alex Renk. And today we're going to be talking about something that's very near and dear to my heart, and that's going to be what makes Renk Seed different. We're going to kind of go over our proprietary genetics and trait offerings and how they're unique for our growers, and then as well as what drives our decision making here, making sure that we can fit all of our farmers' fields across the Midwest. All right. Once again, we'll just start with our little short introductions. Not that you are unusual guests here, but Karl, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm Karl Bobholz. I'm the corn product manager here at Renk. Been in the seed business for almost over 20 years now. I am getting old, Alex. Not as old as you, but get close. Been across the sales, agronomy, product management, and now here at Renk, I'm kind of the product manager, walking fields, making sure we put the right corn into the RK bags, i.e. our RK Renk products. So pretty excited to be here once again, Alex and Max.
All right, Alex, go ahead.
One of my roles here is to do the soybean and alfalfa selection, which I've been doing since probably 1990, I think, if I remember correctly, somewhere along that line. So,
all right, fair enough. Well, that's a perfect way for us to jump right in to kind of the proprietary genetics and the trait offerings we're going to talk about today. And the name of the game is still corn here. So, Karl, we'll fast start with corn selection and why we are different than others and outstanding in our field.
So, I think the best thing is, I always say corn is king. Even in a grower's mind, corn is king, right?
And I have to sit through this crate.
But one thing about Renks, what I love is that we have access to all the different germplasm and trait options on the market. So there are three major trait providers in the corn market right now. You have Bayer, you have Corteva, and you have Syngenta. Those are the major trait offerings out there. And then we work with those companies for germplasm, but we also work with another almost dozen other germplasm providers along with our own. We have two full-time breeders that work within the Renk organization. When we do research and nursery work across two different states, and also we do a winter nursery in Mexico. So we have a nice footprint of both the trait offerings that we can bring into the lineup and also the germplasm that we can combine with the traits and provide a product for our growers.
So this is actually something I do want to touch on. Can you break down the difference between when you're saying trait offerings and germplasm? Because I know for me, last year, this was a huge topic that I did not understand at all, and I'd love for us a little bit of education piece here.
Yep. So germplasm is yield.
Okay.
That's what you think about germplasm. What I think about germplasm is yield. It's also agronomics. Does it have good stalks? Does it have good roots? Does it stand for the grower to harvest? Really what the traits are is protecting it. So you have above ground traits, which protects against European corn borer, earworms, kind of those pests that fly and move in. And then we also have traits that protect against below ground. So that would be the rootworm larvae chewing on the roots. So that is the trait. So if you think about it, germplasm is all about yield. Traits is protecting yield. Also in traits, you do have herbicide tolerance for both Roundup, Liberty, and now Enlist coming forward. So there are multiple things for traits, insects above and below, and then the herbicide tolerance.
And all right, I know that's just due to the nature of how the genetics are set up. Soybeans and alfalfa are a little bit different. So if you could elaborate on that for us, Alex.
To be honest, they're not too much different. There's a limited amount of breeders out there. So we can basically do the same thing as in corn, as we can basically draw from any of the big breeding networks.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge advantage for Renk Seed. A company like us is that we can really shop throughout our lineup, early to late, and through the technologies, and we can put the best of all those, different breeding companies in our bag. Whereas some of the bigger boys, they're very limited to what they can put in the bag. And so top to bottom, our lineup is I'm sure stronger than the bigger players. And that's kind of always been a thorn in my side. It's like, talking to a farmer and say, oh, you can't compete. And it's like, no, actually we can. we can do much better job because we're not limiting to just one breeding program. And even super good breeding programs, they cannot fill all the gaps. They have weaknesses, and then that's where another breeding program can come in.
From my memory, remembering how we switched some soybean genetics pretty substantially over the years. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
At first, a long time ago, we were more of an Eastern kind of a company, seed company. We were very strong in Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin. And then there was a point where we started adding a lot of Western sales. And that became something more where Eastern and Western soybeans are quite a bit different sometimes. Okay, so the Eastern and Western soybeans are two different breeds of cat. So the Western ones are a lot of sudden death is more of an issue. IDC, iron deficiency chlorosis, that's a bigger player. And then the Eastern beans was more the Phytophthora package, more the white mold package, brown stem starts getting in there. So a lot of diseases kind of split those two. And so all of a sudden, we're actually expanding our lineup quite a bit to almost cover two different geographies.
Karl, actually, I know that's going to be something, a point you can touch on as well with corn. So can you?
Yeah. So just like Alex is saying, corn is the same way. When Renk was really growing back in the 90s and going into 2000s, it was a central corn belt. 2010s, that's when they picked up the Western, right? Corn is the same way. Well, when we look at the Western market, we need green stamp tolerance, we need Gauss's wilt, we need those type of agronomics. As we go into the central corn belt, it's mostly a tar spot, it's a root lodge, it's a stalk lodge, a lot more of diseases in the central and the eastern, where the west is more of a stress disease. That's kind of what we think about. That's one thing, just like Alex is saying, with us in Renk, we can have multiple products. When you look at the big boys, they want to have a hybrid that can go from the East Coast to the West Coast and call it good. We'll take 2 or 3 products to go across our footprint, right? And we market in Michigan, Illinois, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Iowa, Nebraska, Dakotas. So that's a nice footprint, and we can have some nice selections for corn too. But yeah, corn is the same way as soybeans. We can have an Eastern influence and we have a Western influence. Once in a while, you do catch a rainbow and you have a hybrid that can go across the whole thing, right? But that is once in a while. So we really, really work and understand what the products can do in each of our markets.
And I think that's a great transition point for us here, because let's talk about how we select our products and why that's a little bit different from what we're seeing in the other companies. Karl, why don't you go ahead?
Yeah, so in the corn side of Renk, we have our own research group. Like I said before, we have 2 full-time breeders. We also have 2 stations in the U.S. One's in Olivia, Minnesota, and one's here in Sun Prairie. So we have 2 stations. Both of them have full-time tech agronomists, so they kind of manage the nurseries, manage the plots. We also do our own yield trials. We test at about 50 plus locations all of our products, plus the products that might be in our bag the next year or the year after. Especially with our own nursery and breeding efforts, we have to screen those for multiple years to make sure we have a good data package, depending on the weather, depending on the year, depending on the soil, right? So that is our key. So one thing within Renks, we have 50 plus locations of data before products come in. Then we also do over 100 third-party tests. That'd be the universities, that'd be the first trial at people, corn grower plots. We're going to that. That's roughly over 100 locations like that. And then we have a roughly 750 to 1,000 grower plots, dealer, farmer, and grower plots. It creates a nice, robust package of understanding what our products can do year in and year out. And then we use that data to really fine-tune our lineup, understand what our lineup is, what it can do for our growers where we sell, and which products we want to bring into our lineup for the next year.
All right. And then Alex, I know we don't have a full-time soybean breeder in-house. So how does that look a little bit different, and how do we still capitalize on it for soybeans and alfalfa?
So the big thing for us is that when you look at breeding locations that main breeders stations do, there is a very limited amount of Eastern data. So you're lucky to get 2 or 3 locations out of Wisconsin and probably 2 or 3 locations out of Minnesota at the breeder level. So the genetics I'm looking at is mainly tested most of the time in Michigan and the Dakotas, which is great because, well, we can select a lot easier in those states. But sometimes you got to find products that are going to do better east. We do have independent trials that we pay for to get more locations up. We rely a lot on our dealer plots for those experimentals that look promising. And then we also do the first trials. And again, they can be still a little bit geographically limited, but it's still data. And probably the big thing for us is that we will take all that data from all these individual different types of locations and put them in one database. And so basically we can do head-to-heads no matter what the test is. If it's first week and, that goes in with a dealer plot, we can do all these heads-to-heads and really have an unbiased view of what these products are performing like.
So you brought up the database and the head-to-head data that we can see here. Can you expand a little bit more for us and for our listeners?
Yeah, so we actually do post that online. That is available for anybody to use, just because we don't feel like we have anything to hide. And again, we're very proud of our products. The same database that's available to our customer base is what we look at to do part of our variety selection. So it is available online, and we're trying to make it very easy to use. So one of the pages I'm reworking right now and hopefully we'll have up soon is that you put in what you're using is for a different company or a Renk product you're using, and you want to compare it to the other products. That is available. So I think it's a great tool, and I think people should be looking at it. We also use some of that data will be in part of the text sheet. Okay. So if you pull up a variety, it'll actually kind of show you geographically some performance numbers. It will show you planting date, how it reacts, because varieties in soybeans especially respond very well to earlier planting dates, almost as a rule. And then different soil types. So, I have to get used to some new nomenclature, how we're calling our soil types. But sorry, Alex. Karl, put the hammer down. But as far as fine grain, coarse, and medium, yeah, that's important too, because we do have some sand, we do have some muck soil. The joy of Wisconsin is I think we have every type of soil you could possibly imagine, and then some. And
20 acres.
yeah, all within 20-acre chunks. So we're well aware of different soil types.
And then I'm going to ask from both of you, and even though at this point I might be more knowledgeable here, but wow, what is more unique about our processing and handling of the product that is different from what we see in other companies? And you know what? We'll start with you, Karl, here, just because you're newer yet.
So the biggest thing I like about, Renk is under 108-day for corn products. We produce everything around here between Sun Prairie, Watertown area. All that 108-day hybrids that we sell come through this growing area and goes to the plant. We do contract with our fuller season in Indiana, Illinois, and Iowa, but that seed still comes up here and goes through our plant. So that's the best thing about on our corn side. All that seed is coming through one location, has the same people looking at it. As it gets graded, goes to the color sorters, all that inside of our plant and goes into the bags or the boxes. It all comes through one plant, so we have quality control through the whole process. And that's one nice thing about the corn side of within the Renk organization.
Anything to add there?
Yeah, so it's similar on the soybean side. The majority of our soybeans is run through our plant. The nice thing we have here is that we have our own bulk storage for soybeans. And so when the soybeans are coming off the field in the fall, they're going into a much better storage situation than they would on a farm. They're not going to go into a 10,000 bushel round bin.
Get dropped.
Get dropped, augured out. And then in the middle of winter, they basically come in the fall, and then we can process them with equipment that's set up not to beat them up. And that's a huge advantage. So normally our germs are in the high 90s. We always bag, or always tag at 90%, just because we basically have to tag our bags before we actually fill them, before they're tested, but they're usually in the high 90s. And then we also do a warm and cold germ test. And the warm germ is, most lots will pass the warm germ, but the cold germ is one that really separates good seed from bad seed. And that's 50 degrees temperature. That's a very high stress test for seed to emerge from. So if it can come out of that, usually you don't have too many worries about seed.
And I think the other notable thing they bring up here is that there's a lot of custom work here done at Renk Seed, and that goes to the quality control aspect. And I know, again, I'm kind of living and breathing it right now. And Brett, if you could join us today, would have a book to explain to us all the processes he's built to make sure that we have the best product going out and the quality control through the entire process.
And we're going to have a super swell podcast down the road. Going to cover all this stuff.
Well, it's always one of those I encourage anyone else to reach out to come get a tour, because there's a lot to see and there's a lot to learn there. But while we still have Karl here, we didn't have a unique opportunity last podcast to bring it out from him. So for those of you who don't know, and if you haven't picked up from Karl's introductions yet, even though he's been in the industry, he has not been with a family business before. So Karl, you specifically, why did you choose to work here at Renk rather than somewhere else again?
Yeah, so a little close for Max, but I did start as a family seed business a long time ago, right?
Yep.
And it was quite interesting. I was detasseling corn, worked in the nursery, middle school, high school, right? Down the road, kind of, came through that organization, and then they got bought up by a large corporation. I made corporate America for 17 years, and at the whole time, I can't believe I made it. But the reason I wanted to come back to a family organization is that you have a lot more flexibility to do what you love, and that is really serving the grower. That's really what we do in the seed business, is all about relationship with our growers. And when you get back to a family organization like the Renk organization is, all we care about is our growers. And that is critical. It provides me a little more ease. I can say, hey, Alex, hey, Jeff, hey, Brett, I want to do this. They might look at me cross-eyed for a second, but they know what I'm looking for. I'm trying to provide the solutions for our sales team, our dealers, and our growers. And that's where I missed for 17 years, and now coming back into a family organization, I love that every day I come back in.
That focus on matching the right genetics to the right acres is what drives everything we do internally. But it's only part of the story. Once those products leave our hands, it's our dealers who bring them to life in the field. They're the ones walking farms, answering calls, and making sure growers have what they need to succeed. At our recent sales kickoff, I asked several of them to share what makes Renk Seed unique from their perspective, and how that translates into the way they work with their customers. Now joining me is Mike Hildebrandt. And Mike, can you just tell us a little bit about your dealership and the story behind that?
So I've been a dealer for 15 years now. Took over from my grandpa in 2009, 10 year it was. He did it for a lot of years. I want to say it was 42 years, but I could be wrong on that number. But he did it for a lot of years. And as he got older, he couldn't keep up with the traits that were coming. Kind of lost track. At the time, the old district manager, Glenn Zarling, approached me. I told him I was not interested.
What changed your mind there?
His persistence paid off. He come again and said, "Are you sure you don't want to try it?" And at the time, actually, I was still working in the Twin Cities, doing a different line of work with the plan of coming back to the farm eventually. And he came one more time and said, "You sure you don't want to try it?" I said, what the heck? If you don't try, you don't know. So what started out the first year, I didn't sell hardly a thing besides the customers that he took care of in our backyard. And it turned into a pretty lucrative thing for myself and my family and my farm. So,
well, I appreciate you sharing that story. And now there's our generational piece. But in your words, Mike, what makes Renk unique?
Number one thing, the family-owned business always has stuck with me since Glenn asked me to be that next generation dealer. And the fact that you can pick up the phone and call. You can call any one of the owner's family, any of those at the office, and get the answer you want or need right away, whether it's the right answer or the wrong answer. It may not be what you want, but at least you get an answer. You're not waiting days and weeks to get what you need to keep trying to move forward. So
I'm joined here today by Porky Carlson, and he's one of our dealers with Renk Seed. And my question for you, Porky, is what makes Renk Seed unique for you?
I like it because it's a family-owned company, and they are really appreciate anything you do for them. As far as you having trouble in sales, they're there to always help you. And then Max, you're coming in as a seventh generation, which is unique. I've sold for other companies, and I just like a family-owned company a lot better.
And have you used any of that to sell your seed through us?
I think it has helped because they're able to get Bayer products, Corteva products, Syngenta products, Extend beans, Enlist beans, where some of the other companies, they're just stuck to one product.
I'm now joined by Jim Fischer, and it's going to be the same question. Jim, what makes Renk Seed unique in your eyes?
I think what makes Renk Seed unique is the people. People make all businesses strong in my eyes. And if you get the right people doing the right things, helping people out, you're all pushing the wagon up the hill the right direction, good things will happen.
And how have you used that to sell some seed through Renk?
I would say the fact that I've been in the seed industry a while, sold for other companies, but the unique thing about Renk is I could actually, if I have a question, I could actually talk to one of the owners about my question. And to me, that's pretty special to be able to do that. And I told one of my customers that one day too. I said, we had a question on the beans inoculant. And I said, let's call and see. And I told him that he was talking to Alex Renk, one of the owners. And he was pretty amazed. And after we got done talking, he said, where do I sign the order? So it went really well. And I was very impressed with that myself that day. So overall, Renk has been very good to me.
And now I'm joined by Patti Stadler, who has been with Renk up anywhere from 7 to 8 to 9 years. I know we start to lose track of time here. But my question for you, Patti, is what makes Renk unique in your eyes, and how do you choose to sell Renk?
Renk is unique in my eyes because it's a family-run organization here based in Wisconsin. They are honest, true, have a fantastic product, stand behind us, and it's just truly great seed.
And that's a perfect note to end on, because whether it's selecting the right germplasm in the lab, testing in plots, or delivering it through a trusted local dealer, it all comes back to knowing what works where. Thanks to Karl and Alex for walking us through the science and strategy behind our product lineup, and to our dealers for sharing their perspective on what makes Renk Seed unique and how that sets us apart in the marketplace. At Renk Seed, every decision, from trait selection and placement to how we test, handle, and deliver seed, is backed by real-world data, agronomic expertise, and a commitment to helping growers get the most out of every acre. Thanks for listening. As always, I'm Alex Renk, and this has been Renk Seeds of Innovation.
Be sure to hit subscribe for a notification when a new episode drops each month, and follow Renk on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and X. This has been the Renk Seeds of Innovation podcast, innovating agriculture one seed at a time.